Right, welcome to Real Estate Radio, and we have a special guest regularly on this particular program, and we talk real estate and the real estate world and what's happening into the real estate. And our guest today is Jan Davel, and Jan Davel is the CEO of Payprop. Payprop is a payment rental system, and he will explain exactly in detail for owners of specifically residential property, and it's a great piece of technology which Jan would share with us, and I think it's changed many of the lives of rental agents in South Africa, and I believe they're also offshore as well, which Jan will share with us. So first of all, I just want to welcome you, Jan Davel, of CEO of Payprop. Thank you for being on the show.
Neil, thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
So Jan, maybe I think the first question that I fire away, and we're sitting down now, we're heading for the 7th week of lockdown, and it's impacted everybody widely, and specifically the real estate industry and real estate agents, which is a large part of your market. Can you maybe just share what impact has lockdown had and COVID-19 on your business and I think also for estate agents?
Thank you, Neil. I think safe to say that it has had a significant impact. And at the outset, we need to differentiate between sales agents, agents selling houses or commercial property. There are different types of property. And then there are agents who are in the rental space, the property management space, lease agreements of commercial entities. So agents aren't necessarily agents. So sales agents have been impacted severely in that the deeds offices have been closed. They were unable to show new houses. There have been no transfers, etc. So sales agents per se have really been battling, and you'll see in social media and even in the media, there's lots of pressure coming from real estate fraternity on government to classify it as a more important or also an essential service. Huge contribution to GDP, etc., etc.
Right.
Then on the property management and the rental side, it has also severely been impacted. I mean, nobody was able to relocate. You're not able to hand over keys. You're not able, as a rental agent, to do property inspections, whether it's ingoing inspections, outgoing inspections. So although agents were able still to advertise property for rent, nothing could actually happen. That's the one part. So let's talk about our industry. We are in the rental space and predominantly in the residential real estate rental space. So what Payprop does there is we've got an automated payment and reconciliation platform. It's specific to the rental industry, and it's basically we facilitate all the payments between a landlord, the estate agent, the tenant making the payment, a single payment coming in. We then have an automated platform, cloud-based, and we distribute that incoming money to the landlord, other service providers. We pay the estate agent's commission. So all of that automated and in a digital space. Now, although the estate agents have been unable to conduct their day-to-day activities in meeting landlords, meeting tenants, showing properties, doing property inspections, that has been hampered significantly. But the payment administration, the flow of funds and the bookkeeping and the management of funds have been uninterrupted for Payprop users. So in the events where, in the instances where tenants effected their payment, it was business as usual for Payprop users, because Payprop is a cloud-based system. It's accessible from any device, anywhere in the world. So our business have gone through significant changes, and we had to implement quite a few additional structures in order for us to work on a distributed manner, not from offices anymore. But all payments, every single payment, the reconciliation of every single payment on a daily basis, proper records, bookkeeping, have been business as usual. So our clients, and there are approximately 1,250 estate agencies in South Africa that are our clients, and that's the South African market, what I'm talking of now.
Right.
Every single client, whether they have been working from home, whether they've been working on a cell phone or an iPad or a laptop or a desktop, the payments and the reconciliation and the statements and the invoices and suppliers, all of that have been uninterrupted. So, Neil, coming back, although there was a huge disruption in terms of the face-to-face activities that estate agents need to do, in terms of the rental payments, the risk profile of the trust money, the invoicing, etc., that have gone, all of that has been business as usual from all of our clients.
Fantastic. So it seems that your technology is almost a little bit ahead of time. But before we get into that and dig a little bit deeper into that technology, Jan, I mean, you obviously can pick up now the trends of the actual payments coming in for rent. Has that declined? Has the number of transactions declined? Are you seeing defaults? Is that a trend that you are picking up? Because I do understand that there has been quite a number of significant defaults from, I know there's an office, I'm quoting now TPN stats. I mean, you probably got better stats, and because you know exactly what's moving on your side. So maybe you can just tell us what's actually happening in terms of those trends.
Absolutely. And it's quite important to note that, you know, stats are stats. And in this environment, it's very dangerous to compare month-to-month stats, even year-to-date stats. It depends on how you massage it. And there are many articles and many opinions in the marketplace. So in real terms, we see every single cent that flows through our platform. And it is just maybe as a sample size, I'm talking of approximately 110,000 properties.
Wow.
In South Africa, on those properties, we see the financial movements, everything coming in, everything going out. And then we can massage it month on month, quarter to quarter, this year's quarter to previous quarter, etc. Now, to cut to the chase, yes, Neil, there are defaults. And the word default is also something we probably need to discuss, because you have tenants who simply cannot pay. You have other tenants who maybe show intent and make partial payments. Let's say they pay, for example, 50% and they give an undertaking.
Right.
You do get other tenants that would say, listen, I've got a short-term scenario, kindly apply my damage deposit for cash flow. I will top you up later again. So there are different nuances, and it's very difficult statistically to see exactly who's not paying because of real cash flow problems, who's using an excuse, who's making a partial payment. But what is very important, and that's also something we don't really have sight of, is what are the actual terms and conditions that the landlords and the tenants have agreed to? Is it a deferred payment? Is it a reduced payment? Is it acceptance of a no payment? Or is it going to be court procedures ending up in an eviction? We don't know that. But what we can tell you safely is the following. The processing on Payprop platform for April 2020 was down, if I compare it to the previous quarter, previous 3 months, by 19.6%.
Right.
Now, that means that we also need to consider how long the month is. And that was for April. We need to consider it was Easter weekend. We need to consider how the weekends fall. So in real terms, Neil, it's anywhere between 18 and 22% less processing through our platform. In other words, less payments. And whether that is no payment, partial payment, deferred payment, no one really knows, because it sits in different offices, some of it official, and that's my advice to landlords, tenants, and estate agents. Whatever agreements you are, please put it into a formal addendum, attach it to your lease agreement, whether it's deferred payment, whether it is application of damage deposit. Be very clear on your terms and conditions, reduce it to writing, attach it to your agreement, and then stick to it. I think it is quite important that landlords try to accommodate and meet the tenant, especially if it's a good tenant. But we need to be very clear on how we're going to rectify later. So the big question to me, in my view, is what are the amounts that are irrecoverable? Are landlords going to lose this money in real terms, or is it deferred? But roughly, we're talking between 18 and 22%, and it also depends on market segments, demographics. Certain pockets are more affected than others in terms of income groups.
Okay, so Jan, maybe just tell us a little bit about, okay, you know, you've given some really good advice in terms of what the actual terms and conditions are with the tenant, in terms of deferred payments, no payments, etc. What would agents have to do to adapt? I think, you know, especially we're talking about your rental agent, your property manager, to survive on specifically rental focus. You'd be talking about tenants now. So obviously we're not talking about sales. So, I mean, you've given sage advice. Does Payprop, first of all, do you advise agents accordingly? I know you've already given some good ideas. Do you have influential advice there that you could offer them? And what would they have to do, do you think, to adapt and to survive? Because I think when we come out after this COVID-19, I think it could be quite a very different market out there.
Residential agents on the rental side, Neil, will probably never go back to work like they used to in the past. I think we've all learned, and that's us at Payprop as well as our clients, the real estate agents and agencies. We've all learned that it's quite possible to do a lot of our business, to conduct a lot of our business in a distributed manner. In other words, working from home at the moment because we're forced to, could very easily become working from home because we want to. Alternatively, it could very easily become working from a coffee shop or a restaurant or umbrella on the beach, simply because we want to. The payment reconciliation side, the invoicing side, the audit side, the entire financial process flow of rental management or property management can be done remotely, subject to you having the correct technology. And I think there will be less brick and mortar in rental management companies going forward. I think people have learned that it's not necessary to have many people in the same room. Information flow is now not going to be a hard copy file getting passed on. I think where it used to be a cup of coffee conversation or a around the water cooler conversation is now going to be on technology such as Slack or Asana, like we use, for example, to augment our own platform.
Right.
So there are certain roles and functions that rental estate agents will still have to conduct. And I think although there are digital platforms for them to advertise their properties where they can do virtual tours and 360-degree camera, video recordings, etc. All of that is fantastic. Real estate, in my personal opinion, is something where there's emotion involved. So things like physical viewings, I think, will remain important for another while at least. So I think that probably won't change altogether, although people will be more informed before they physically visit a property. And then for the landlord and the tenant and the estate agent, there is still a responsibility to consider property condition. There's an ingoing inspection, there's an outgoing inspection, and estate agents probably still need to attend those physically. Even if there are digital platforms where you can do property conditions and you can upload and download photos and store photos, etc., the responsibility for a professional estate agent is probably too high, and I would recommend that until such time as there is maybe changes in legislation about accountability, estate agents, I think, will still have to do a physical handover of a key, ingoing and outgoing inspection, etc. But in terms of process flows, documentation, accounting, bookkeeping, banking, all of that will be in the digital space. And physical offices will probably be much, much smaller. It will be for attendances. I think that most property management will be taking place in a distributed manner going forward.
Jan, your background was actually with a real estate agency, also bond origination. I would assume that when you were in the state agency business, I'm sure Payprop is, you used the system. I won't put you in a position to say you did use them, but certainly I think maybe how is it on, and I wouldn't say it's on the other side of the fence because it's all related. But how has your perspective changed moving from maybe, and tell us a little bit about that background and your time, obviously, in the bond origination business and also in the state agency. And then I think your transformation, because you've been there, I understand, just under 2 years as CEO of the company. And maybe just what you've seen from the estate agent side and moving over, and also the bond originator, and then moving now onto more rental focused sort of systems on the other side. How's your perspective changed from moving over?
Right. Neil, I originally started my career as a public prosecutor. I was fortunate enough to study law, and I had a bursary from the Department of Justice. So I was obliged to pay my bursary by working as a public prosecutor. So for 4 years, I was in criminal courts prosecuting the bad guys, and I properly enjoyed that. Then ventured on into private sector, got involved in small business, import, export, etc. And later decided to practice as a lawyer, became an attorney in Johannesburg, Sandton-based, where I specialized in banking law. So as somebody with a criminal court background, I attended to banking law, investigated fraud matters, did inquiries in the events of liquidations, and in making inquiries as to the responsibility and accountability of directors, etc. So I was acting for and on behalf of banks, mostly trying to investigate fraud and to assist prosecution in fraudulent matters. So banking fraud law is my original background. Due to personal circumstances, which involved a major motor vehicle accident, I decided in 2002 that the year 2002, that I no longer want to liquidate companies. I don't want to prosecute delinquent directors, don't want to do commercial recoveries and home foreclosures. And that's when in 2002, I ventured into, that was then a new concept of bond origination or bond broking, assisting consumers to obtain home loans, and where I used to foreclose home loans in some cases.
Right.
So got involved in bond origination, got involved in property development, and through relationships and acquaintances, I later ventured more closer to franchised real estate companies. I made a bit of a study of the concept of franchising, and I was involved in the franchising of a bond origination concern. Through that, trade connections, business acquaintances, I became a director of the Franchise Association of South Africa, where I served for a few years. I was the chairman of the Franchise Association of South Africa in 2012. And through that, got involved in real estate franchising, owned or co-owned a real estate brand as a franchisor in South Africa for a few years. 2015, decided that that's not what I want to do long term. I got involved in a public company where I did business development consulting in the real estate space. during the time that I owned a real estate brand as a franchisor with approximately 70 outlets under the particular brand in South Africa, I implemented Payprop as a system, really loved it. As a former bank litigator, I looked at the security of it. I looked at consumer protection, data protection, efficiency, turnaround time. And what most of my clients would probably tell you is what I felt at the time is this is not cheap. The original, initially you think about paying a percentage of your income towards a platform, and only when you realize exactly what it means and what it does for you and how you can scale your business and how safe it is, and the fact that it's reconciled, all payments are reconciled on a daily basis. And if you look at the bank grade security and you consider the comfort and the ease of managing it from anywhere in the world on any device, and there's real-time updates, and it's visible, it's transparent. Your landlord has an application where he can see on his phone, where he can see exactly where the funds flow. And Payprop assists with audits, and there's an agreed upon procedure with all the clients' auditors. I just couldn't help but let go of all the other attempts we've had at doing rental management. So I implemented it as a client, sat as a franchisor, had consultations with my franchisees. We embraced Payprop, and the rest was history. So later in life, when I left the real estate fraternity, I was fortunate enough to be involved in a team, professional team that conducted a due diligence on Payprop, and that was Payprop South Africa specifically. And at this moment in time, it's maybe important to mention that Payprop South Africa is a licensee of a bigger organization.
Right.
Payprop's head offices are in the UK. Although it was founded by South Africans, it was always been registered offshore. So the South African Payprop is the oldest. It was established in 2004, registered as an estate agency. So Payprop is also a fully accredited real estate agency. We comply with everything that estate agents comply with in South Africa since 2005. So I was fortunate enough to do a due diligence investigation for an equity transaction, and then met up with the shareholders and directors of Payprop, of whom I used to be a client. And the one thing led to the other. With my background in law, in franchising, in real estate, in fraud, in banking, I was offered the opportunity, and I joined Payprop in January 2019. And I'm very privileged to be in this position and to participate still in the larger real estate industry of South Africa. And I've thoroughly been enjoying it.
Fantastic. So Jan, I think then you've been at the company now just over a year. And what is your vision going forward? I mean, the fact that you're based in the UK and the US and that kind of stuff, I mean, surely there must be massive opportunity going forward, specifically probably more in the prop tech space, because you're already there. What is your vision for the future?
Well, Neil, yes, our vision at the moment, and we've learned so many lessons due to the forced lockdown, is we now have a full or a better understanding of distributed work. We are definitely going to be spending more time and effort on perfecting the skill of distributed work. So our head offices are in Seven Oaks. It's in Kent, England. Then we also have an office in Toronto, Canada. We have offices in Villars-sur-Glâne in Switzerland. It's just outside of Geneva. We've got offices in Miami. So with the distributed workforce, we want to follow the original ethos of our founders. And Payprop was derived, or it was developed from another platform originally called Give and Gain. And Give and Gain still exists. It is a charity platform that works across borders, and their slogan is "One World, Zero Barriers." So Payprop will follow in that vein, in that we will, in South Africa remains, I mean, it was our original footprint. We've got a proper market share. We've been going here since 2004, but we are growing in the UK, like you cannot believe, gaining market share. The US is obviously a massive opportunity, but we want to move towards a space where we can render 24/7 support to any client, almost on all the continents that we do operate in. And we want to enable more estate agents across the world to deal with customer money, client money in a proper, transparent manner. So we believe that we've got way to go, lots of expansion possibility, and further development, further tech enhancement. So yes, we are learning, and to answer you, further development of distributed work methodology for us to enable our clients across the globe.
Coming back to South Africa, Jan, what kind of trends do you see happening going forward, specifically in the South African residential rental markets post-COVID? Because there's the markets have changed. You've already given us some stats where around about 20% where your payments are down. We don't know whether that trend will continue. I mean, it's speculative on that. But where do you see the South African residential, and let's focus in on your business, particularly on the rental sector and on the residential markets per se. We can talk about sales as well, but I think certainly the one is linked to the other. But certainly, where's it going? I mean, what kind of trends? I mean, is it going to lower end properties? Is it bigger rentals, lesser rentals, midstream? Can you maybe just share a little bit about that?
Well, Neil, the trend in the property market is influenced by a number of things. So COVID-19, lockdown, job losses, etc., will have a significant impact, and not to mention the current state of the economy. It's safe to say that, even prior to the lockdown, the real estate or residential rental market was not doing all that well. Rental growth, so let's say the monthly income for a landlord was growing at a very low rate. It was actually lower than the average CPI.
Right.
So because of economy and many other things, it has not been the ideal. We haven't seen much growth, and just pre-COVID, there was also nothing on the cards that showed us that there would be significant growth. So rental yields was a bit challenging. The rental income growth was a bit challenging. And because of where we are now, not only COVID, but predominantly politics and economy, we are of the opinion that rental growth is going to be very subdued. In real terms, probably a negative for the next year or two. In terms of current payments, monthly payments at the moment, yes, we've seen a reduction. Let's call it roughly an average of 20%. And we predict that May and June might even be worse. So the short-term prospects is not great, but we all understand it, and we must all collaborate. And yes, I think the typical South African term of Ubuntu, let's all work together to come through this, is going to be very, very important. And then on the longer term, one must remember that real estate has always been long-term investment. So short term, it's going to be tight. Medium term, I hope that it's going to be better. And long term, I'm confident that it will recover. Real estate is still the only investment that can also be your family home. And it's still the only investment in which you can raise your kids. Real estate has always been long-term. It will be long-term. And I think the biggest influence medium to long-term is probably the economy and how government will respond to all these challenges. So short term, not very bleak, but bleak. But people need to sit on their hands, be patient, collaborate, and work together to get through this.
Great. So, Jan, in closing, then, leave a little bit of advice, intelligence for both your agents, your clients, also for landlords, owners of rental properties, sort of going forward. What would you like to leave the audience? What is the takeaway that you would like to leave them in, specifically in relation to what Payprop is offering the market?
Neil, I think that all the stakeholders in the South African real estate market, specifically now the residential component thereof, everybody needs to be patient. Everybody needs to understand that we are sitting in an exceptionally difficult situation. We normally face challenges in terms of the economy, politics, etc. Now that has been compounded significantly, and one should be careful not to overreact. Real estate, property investment is a long-term investment. On the short term, things do not look good. The short-term prospects are not great, but there's only so much real estate in South Africa, and the population is growing. Everybody needs to have a home. Estate agents, I think, have been going through a very, very difficult time. They're unsure about tomorrow. They're unsure about the next month. They are dependent on commission only, which is very, very, very difficult at the moment. But things need to change. They need to embrace technology. They need to hone their skills. During this quiet time, this forced lockdown time, is an excellent time for you to consider the use of technology, educate yourself, follow programs, continue your studies, do your continuous professional development that is mandatory, read more, embrace technology, use it. Technology has already become the new norm. So don't be, though it's tough, invest this time to familiarize yourself with proper technology and find ways of differentiating yourself in a post-COVID situation, because the gates are going to open, people would need to move, and the best thing you can do now is your positioning post-COVID, even if we don't know exactly when that's going to be.
Jan Davel, CEO of Payprop South Africa, thank you very much for the discussion. It was wonderful chatting to you, and I wish you well and stay safe until we hope that this lockdown can be lifted pretty soon.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for the opportunity, and all the best to you and yours. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jan.